Uh, it's Jerry from the Rythmia Life Advancement Center in Guanacaste, Costa Rica. I hope you're having a great day. I keep changing the time of this Facebook Live until we get it right. We're trying out different things in order to get it right. What is Rythmia? Rythmia is a life advancement center unlike no other one in the world. We do something so unique that some of the greatest thought leaders, athletes, personalities have come here and even joined our board of directors. So on our board of directors, we have Martin Luther King's son, Michael Bernard Beckwith, Kelly Slater, Cesar Millan, Tony Coe from NYX Cosmetics, Earl Koski, and Dr. Jeff McNary, all on our board of directors. That's just the board of directors, because this place is so special. What is it so special? What's so special about it? Well, 14,000 people have been through the doors here, and 97.77% as of last week report a life-changing miracle during their stay. The better part of that is 90.28% 6 months later say that this was changed their life. That's pretty big stuff. So if you're sitting on the fence and you've been following us for a while and you see all that happens here, please come. Cesar Millan is teaching a class next week, and the week after that is the ladies' week called Majesty. Come on in. Now is the time. Some different little things about this. So what is it about Rythmia, and what happens at Rythmia that's so cool? Well, Rythmia uses a combination of modalities from wonderful food to meditation, yoga, breath work, plant medicine, all kinds of teachings, metaphysical teachings. The Answer Is You by Michael Beckwith that are pressure cooked into a week. With 4 plant medicine ceremonies, 2 breathwork sessions, and that brings about something called a soul merger, or in Africa they call it a soul reclamation. In the Bwiti tribe, soul reclamation. So this soul merger that happens gives people a brand new perspective on life, a brand new perspective on how lucky they are to be alive, and a new perspective on wanting to share their gifts, talents, and intelligence with the world. How can we share that? Well, once merged, we decide we want to be a beneficial presence to the planet. Why? Either we believe we're coming back, or we've evolved to the point that we can plant trees that we're never going to experience the shade of. And either one of those is the best reason in the world, right? Because the one is for the love of our brothers and sisters, and the other is this knowledge that the soul never dies, and this energy keeps repeating itself in this plane, the earthly plane. Yeah, so both of those are great things. Now, once that happens, once that merger happens, and we pick this thing from a merged part of ourself that is really going to make benefit to those around it, and we lock in on that, and we make agreements with ourself that we're going to service this thing before we service ourselves. We're going to service our body before we service ourselves. We're not going for pleasure. We're going for quality. So once we do that, and we make these agreements, and we write these agreements down, and we reverse engineer where we're going all the way back to the steps that it takes in our daily life to get there, we are in great shape. Now, so a lot of people say, well, I'm not healed enough yet to do this work. Well, I'm not either. And neither is anybody else. Nobody is ready to go. Nobody's in the physical shape that it's going to take to get them there. Nobody has the perfect relationships that's going to take to get them there. They just go. They go, and they go optimistically once they're merged. Now I'm going to tell you, because from time to time I see studies that just rock me. So in a 22-year-old University of Pennsylvania study with over 350,000 participants, they looked at these successful people and they paired them out over a period of years, and they tried to come up with the one characteristic that the most successful of all these people shared. And it's crazy because it's so simple. But what was it? Optimism. Optimism and unrealistic expectations. So the combination of optimism and unrealistic expectations is what creates hyper success and hyper growth and hyper benefit to those people around. So were those people who are optimistic about everything perfect? No way, because nobody is ever fully healed in this experience of life. We get better, and hopefully we get better and better and better and better and more healed and more content and more fulfilled. But perfect? No. So what I find really interesting is this study and how optimism affects us all. Now, when we get to peer groups, because peer groups are a part of our success, they are. So the up-leveling of our peer groups to be folks who are better at what they do, who are more successful, who are more interested in what's good for the whole, and the commonalities of this success, and adopting each other's dreams. The more that those folks around you are optimistic, the more optimistic you will be. Don't let anybody talk you out of your optimism. You know, a lot of the people who love us are very well-intentioned when they say, a singer, you can't sing, or a basketball player, you can't play basketball, or a guitarist, you can't play guitar, or a business mogul, you don't have any experience at business. A lot of times the people closest to us, our mothers, our wives, our husbands, our boyfriends and girlfriends and uncles and aunts, are really well-meaning, because what they're trying to do, they're trying to make it so you don't get let down. What they don't understand is that failing is absolutely part of the process. And once we are clicked in to our merged beneficial presence target, once we're clicked into that and we know it's going to take 10 years, we know it's going to be harder than anything we've ever done, we know that it's going to bear more fruit than we could ever imagine. We know that. We also know that that process is riddled with failure. It is riddled with failure. That process of becoming, and I want to tell you my little quick story. One of the companies I owned as a young guy, I had a target of making $10 million. I was going to make it in 3 years. And I think I started that company in 1997, and it failed and went out of business in the year 2000. In 2001, I started it again. My idea from when I started it initially, I thought if I had $10 million, it would be the greatest thing that ever happened to me. I started it in 2001 again, and was had a capital event in 2004 that resulted in a sale and $90 million. So 9 times what I ever thought it could be worth, and that didn't count the money I made in those years, called $100 million. I was only shooting for 10. It was the hardest thing I've ever went through. It was riddled with failure. I was the laughing stock of a community because of failure until the end. And then in the end, everybody said, I always knew he was going to do it. He was on the right path from the beginning. I was his biggest supporter. All that baloney, but that's part of your experience. So don't sell your dream to your mom, to your dad, to your uncle, to your kid, to your nephew, to the next door neighbor. Don't let them talk you out of it. Now, if you do it from a merged place, it is much more secure. It's kind of like standing flat-footed as opposed to standing on your toes. When you're standing flat-footed, when you made that decision from here, everything else is more grounded. So you can take a lot more abuse, and still keep ticking. And then these things go in series of years. Somewhere between the 4th year and the 7th year, it starts to have inertia. So when people see inertia, they go, oh, look, they're in flow. It's so easy for him or her to be in flow. What they didn't look at is the 7 years of previous practice that created that flow. I always like to talk about my heroes. In this life, a dear friend of mine is probably the best speaker I've ever seen in my life. And his name is Michael Bernard Beckwith from the Agape Spiritual Center in Los Angeles, California. And he is a master. He's been at it, I dare say, 40 years. And probably around the 7th year, he became killer. I would hate to see his first 3, because he wouldn't have looked that way. Michael Jordan getting kicked off his basketball team. Tiger Woods, not being a good golfer. He started golfing at 3. But what I'm telling you is, in these early stages, when the great ones adopted their craft, when they decided they wanted to be the best mother in the world, when they decided they want to feed more poor than anybody's ever fed, when they decided to become the best golfer or the best singer or the best whatever, they were terrible. So their path was littered with failure. Littered. If we build our trajectory on agreements and not motivation, we win. So you say, well, wait, you just talked about optimism. How can I be optimistic and still not rely on motivation? Optimism is a crazy thing, because what one person would consider optimistic, the other person would consider realistic. So for me, when the I hate saying this, but when I had the moon tell me to do all this stuff, she said that we would have the biggest plant medicine place in the world, and that our place is in the world, and that we would have the largest community in the world, and There was nothing. There was nothing, But when you start this, when you're motivated by this thing and you start it, and it looks so uphill, and if you go back into my history, I started with one plastic surgery center, and I wound up with 140 by the time I sold it. And the thing is, I actually said in the initial meeting that we will build this into the biggest plastic surgery company in the world. And when I said that, I know that the 6 people who were with me probably thought, well, if we had 5, it would be great, right? But no, I was telling the truth. And you can tell the truth. That's optimism with unrealistic expectations. My expectations for this project is that these centers are all over the world someday. That's unrealistic and absolutely true. So what is optimistic to someone is realistic to someone else. I always look at things and see what can be. If you get in the habit of looking at what can be, even if you're experiencing failure, and you do not let those around you who are well-intended talk you out of it. When Sylvester Stallone was living on the street with his dog and wouldn't sell his script if he couldn't be in the movie, and everybody told him the movie was going to stink, that it was a stinker. It was terribly unrealistic for him to believe that Rocky would be the blockbuster movie that he knew it would be. So it was unrealistic to others, but it was absolutely realistic to him. So the fruit and the beauty of this thing is your biggest dream can be yours if you don't rely on the opinions of others And if you don't rely on motivation, if you rely on personal agreements with yourself, and you rely on this, knowing that this is your destiny, this is your lodestar, this is where you're going, you got it licked. You got it licked, and it is a terrible thing. And if you wait to get better, if you wait to be healed, if you wait to be a great businessman, if you wait to be a fantastic singer before you sing, you're not going to do it. You know, it's interesting. I'm a huge fan of Mother Teresa, and I know that many people have talked a lot of baloney about Mother Teresa, even some of them who are close to her. I happen to be friendly with her spiritual advisor that was appointed by the Catholic Church, a Monsignor who was appointed to be her spiritual advisor. And I have inside information as to what that looked like after her death. And I want to tell you, there's a woman who changed the lives of many. She did. Was she perfect? Absolutely not. Did it stop her from helping and feeding the poor? Absolutely not. Was she a lady of her own convictions? Absolutely, because you can't become this thing in this earth as a swim against entropy if you don't have strong convictions. She had it all. Did she wait till she was fully healed before she started helping the poor? No way. Not at all. Not at all. And despite what they say about her, what a couple of people with terrible opinions said about her, was this woman would not stop. She was a gift to those people she was helping and feeding. A real gift, and she was very unhealed and very human. Well, that's what we're all called to do. We are not called to be perfect. We are called to contribute, and the way that we contribute is by being a beneficial presence to the collective. That is it. If you look at someone on Facebook and you say they're not healed, they can't be contributing anything, you're screwed up, not them. They can contribute everything they want to contribute on this way. Now, if you're not merged, you're probably going to abandon the cause. Probably. Because if that wasn't picked from a place that's really solid, you're going to give up on it. And the one thing that we've learned is that in any new endeavor, it's harder in the first 3 years than it ever is. So a lot of people that keep changing tables, they keep changing professions, they keep changing occupations, they keep changing every 3 years, they're always in the hardest part. No wonder when you speak to them at 60 years old, they're broken. They're broken because they're on try number 15. They've been trying things and changing every 3 years, and they're broken. You know why? They've done such an amount of work that if they had stuck with the one thing, if they knew what the one thing was and they stuck with it, and they stuck with it for 10 years, things get easier and easier and easier and easier. And that breeds optimism. There's nothing that makes us more optimistic than having won, having mastery, having success. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more we get, the easier it is to get. in horse racing and in human racing and in sales competitions and everything, you know who has the highest likelihood of winning? The person, dog, horse that won last race, because they believe they can win. That's optimism. That's what I'm going to leave you with today. Until next time, God bless you, God keep you, God hold you, and we will talk to you next week.